Hey y'all, I'm Leah.
And I'm Rachel.
We're two wives and a spark. As new parents and as an interracial couple, we're on a mission to connect with others and explore how race and politics influence so much for families like ours.
Yes, we believe intentional conversations are vehicles for change. So we're committed to learning in public and having real talk every step of the way.
And you know what? Maybe, just maybe one conversation at a time, we can make the world a better place.
I think so. So let's jump in, y'all.
Season 3, episode 2. Pew, 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 pew.
We're back.
Air horn.
Oh my goodness.
I've been working on all my voices and sounds with Ember.
Yes, you have. Yeah, yes, you have. Lots and lots.
Get ready, y'all. Season 3 sound effects. Brought to you by Leah Rosen.
Oh, man. Well, we are happy to be back recording the second episode of season 3.
Season 3.
Yeah.
So
let's take it back. What to expect in season 3 and like why this focus? Why now? What are we doing? How's it gonna roll? How did it come about?
How did y'all decide to come back?
Yeah, why are you still with us? Just kidding. We're so glad you're with us.
We talk a lot about community on this podcast, and a lot about we are not who we are solo. Like we didn't get here by ourselves. There's always influence from our community, our family, and there's always stories that kind of help us in our reflection as we, every day are trying to be better versions of ourselves.
Yeah.
And continuously aiming to do the work we love to do, but not do it solo.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
and also the thing about this podcast came about because we were shocked that we couldn't find more interracial lesbian couples learning out loud about the intersection of race and politics and how just all of that influences their experiences. So we started this by saying, dang, there's nothing else out there. Let's start the conversation and see what happens, right? And so we're kind of in that same place now where we're really craving dialogue. So we were looking for other interracial LGBT couples and families talking together about what's going on in the world on a regular basis. And we just couldn't find it. So of course, here we are.
We were like, well, we have our platform.
Yeah.
Let's start talking about it. Yeah, and let's invite people on to talk with us.
Yeah. Let's interview some people. Let's have conversations about the real dynamics and ramifications and challenges of these times being LGBT families and parents and kind of the water we swim in and the things we're constantly thinking about or the noise that you talk about that's constantly influencing our everyday experiences.
Right. And I think that's constantly influencing the hatred and the negative actions that are happening in our society against the LGBTQIA plus community. And I think there's noise and history in our country that allows us to know that we have many ancestors that came before us whose strength is what we stand on today. And then there are people and lives in between both of those ends of the spectrum, right? Mm-hmm. And like when we're thinking about acts and bills that are being drafted and making headlines, like the Don't Say Gay bill, and we're thinking about like, oh, when Ember goes to school, what conversations is she going to hear? I'm coming from a same-sex family household. Like, what noise is she going to be around? And how do we make sure we're holding space for her to understand you come from a place of beauty, a place of strength, a place of courage, a place that deserves to exist.
Yeah.
And if we're having that thought and she's, a young human being, we know that there are other families that look like ours also having those thoughts and conversations. Some folks who are having to have those conversations with their kids because they're already in schools. And so we realize just because that's something we're talking about and thinking about, not everyone in our audience might be thinking or talking about that. And so we have this platform. This is about our lives. We want to continue to bring things up that are true and coming up in our world. And so this season, we thought it would be really important to bring families who look like us on this show to talk about the policies and the politics in our current day society that are actually impacting our everyday lives.
Yeah, yeah.
And the ways in which that's happening.
You know, you said families that look like us, whether that's a big umbrella to be like
LGBTQ
that
plus.
represent
Yeah.
our experience as LGBTQ plus families. You know, we have a particular desire to hear from other lesbian moms
Mm-hmm.
because that's our lived experience. And we
Mm-hmm.
believe that exposure matters. And one of the things that we have learned is, you know, on this journey with Spark and with all the work that we do, stories really are vehicles for shifting minds and expanding horizons of potential openness. You know, the more that we see our story in someone else, even though we might be like, well, that's not my identity, but I relate to that struggle,
Yeah.
then we start to shift and move the needle a little bit as people. And so
Mm-hmm.
our biggest hope is that these conversations can be vehicles for change, that they
Mm-hmm.
can be vehicles for even more conversations that have ripple effects, because we believe that when we take time to hear from people and to listen to stories that may not align with ours, but that push our thinking and that allow us to see the world through a different lens, then we start to expand the potential impact of what can be true. And I think now more than ever, I mean, this feels like it has been a year of more anti-LGBTQ plus bills
Mm-hmm.
and anti-trans specific bills
Mm-hmm.
than ever before. And the rhetoric filled with hate is having real ramifications and
On
causing
people's lives.
major harm. This
Yeah.
is life and death. You know, when we're recording this particular episode, it's the day after the Colorado Springs massacre at Club Q, and we're still holding pain in our hearts deeply
Yeah.
and still processing that experience of just witnessing and being present to that pain and the real impacts of this hateful rhetoric.
Right. And I think the fear in that is like, we are human beings out in the world living our lives every day. We go to a lot of places, right? And I'm thinking about the human beings and the families that were impacted by that deadly shooting, right? And like living your everyday life, being
Yeah.
you,
Yeah.
living in your truth,
Yeah.
having a good time,
Right.
being in community.
Right.
And how have we gotten to this place? How are we still in this place in our society where just being your true authentic self is a death sentence?
Yeah.
Right? And if we stay silent and if we don't hold space for conversations and don't hold space to show we exist and you're not silencing us,
Right.
then what are we doing, right?
Right.
Like, you know, I think the fear can cause us to be silent, right?
Yeah.
Because you're like, well, I don't want anyone to come after our family or to attack us. But I think we have to continue to hold space to make sure our voices are heard during these traumatic times and to make sure that people know that we will continue to exist, period.
That's right. That's right.
And we'll continue to utilize our voices for those whose voices have been taken.
Yeah. And there's just got to be more visibility and more normalizing of families look different. There's not one right way. There's not one way. There's so many different ways. We always say, you know, in the kind of cliche saying, love makes a family. We don't believe that's cliche. Like there is so much deep belief in our beings that love has to be the way through this. Love, compassion, empathy. The more that we're able to see each other in humanizing ways and to hear stories.
Yeah, because you teach love and you teach hate.
Yes.
Right? And so like as an educator, even though I'm not doing direct service anymore, I can remember when we would have families opt out of any curriculum that had to do with LGBT stories or experiences or knowledge. And you as more years you have in the education system, the more you realize you can opt out of a session of something, right? But if those values of love and kindness and all are welcome are a part of your school system, unless you take your kid out of that school system, they're going to be exposed to that understanding of all are welcome here. And it's, if you like whoever you like, that's okay. If I like whoever I like, that's okay, right? It doesn't have to be catered to just this curriculum thing. And so when families would opt out of it, I'd be like, that's the choice. I mean, it's not the choice I would make for my kid, but that's the choice. But that's not going to stop your kid from hearing from little Johnny on the playground, right? Like, and like, I think those moments, we have to, and that's what gives me hope that, like, even when we see like mom organizations who are, trying to create more rhetoric or noise to create more hate because, of their insecurities or fears or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
I often hold on to this idea that children can also be taught to love, right? And as much as they can be taught to hate, they can also be taught to love. If we continuously are putting our best foot forward to bring love into the world and to teach love, that's got to be enough. Yeah.
Yeah. In the last episode, we talked about how, we're realizing how much Ember is a sponge and how you can fuel self-love and self-compassion, or you can choose to put other things into the sponge, right? And I think we've been thinking and learning and processing so much about parenting these past 9-10 months that it's, for me, we have talked a lot about how we are almost reparenting ourselves in some ways as we're learning about some of our own ish that comes up. And I'm thinking about Dr. Becky's book, Good Inside, how she talks about, like, it's never too late to repair harm. It's never too late. You can always reparent yourself, a need that didn't get met for you. So I think underneath what you just said about you can teach love, as my biggest hope is that with more visibility and more normalizing of family and loving parents that look like ours, we're probably not going to be able to reach people on the far, far end of the spectrum that are so hateful in their deep belief that we're subhuman. But we might be able to reach the cousin of the person who's thinking about, like, I don't want to put that much hatred out into the world. Like, there might be another way, and I relate to this story, or I believe that child is joyful, like there's just so much in between. And so our goal with this season is to really shine a light on the everyday couples and families that are grappling with real parenting dilemmas, and also the backdrop of this added weight, knowing that our community is under attack in a lot of ways. It's almost like this unconscious dynamic that is constantly there, that you just are constantly
it's
tracking.
taking up some space. For sure. And you don't get the privilege to turn down that noise. Right. So when politicians are creating whatever, one-liner they want to put out into the universe to cause chaos, it becomes something that then we don't get to turn down, right? Even if the bill dies from the House to the Congress, like, it's still noise we don't get to live without. And we have to understand, I think it's easy sometimes for us to live in these spectrums, right? Like, you're either over here or you're over here. But I think the part of it that we have to get back to our humanity on is hearing people's experience with the choices we have made. Right? And I think many politicians, but I think the ones who are really about rooting their agendas in hate aren't having to sit and listen. Here is what that sentence came out of your mouth, and here's the impact it had on my family on a daily basis, right? Like, when these politicians who are like allowing their agendas and their policies to be rooted in hate then get up and say, I'm sending prayers out to these families, it's because you get to live in this extreme, right? And so, to your point, we may not be able to then go to the most extremist person and say, here's our podcast, please listen. And so what we will use our time doing is bringing stories into this space, and holding space for those stories to exist and to live on, and to live beyond us. And we're excited to share that with you all, to learn in public with you all. That has always been a value of ours, is to, we don't have all the answers. Even as we're talking right now, we're kind of like pausing in some of our sentences because this is so much of our lives there's not a script, right?
Mm-mm.
To be like, and then I'm gonna say this, and then you said it. Like, we are currently still processing the deadly news that was from coming out of Colorado Springs, and like the reality that a marginalized person in this society right now could be at the grocery store, could be at a church, could be at a club. You can pretty much be anywhere, wondering if
Mm.
you can be hurt.
Am I safe?
Am I safe? And like that is traumatic,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so we either could wake up every day and live in that trauma and then live in fear,
Mm-hmm.
which is an option, right? And it is. And if anyone is making that choice, I completely understand why.
Yeah.
We are making the choice to know that that is something that we could possibly do. I could stop taking Ember places, right?
Yeah.
Because of that worry.
Yeah.
Or I can say, all right, I can push past it today. Maybe tomorrow I can't, but today I can. So today we're going to speak up. Today we're going to use our platform to do this. Today we're going to share this insight. And again, that can change day by day. Because this is real life and it is very traumatic.
Yeah, it's like constant stages of grief in a lot of ways. You know, you're constantly like each day in a different cycle, a different stage, depending on the proximity and the pain and the comfort and safety. You know, we are constantly thinking about where will we be most safe as a family? You know, now that Ember's in our picture, where are we physically the most safe? Are we able to go on road trips? Are we able, like driving through small towns? Is that something we don't get access to right now in the state of where our country is at?
Right.
What schools do we feel safe and do we trust are going to have our families back, right? Like these are real questions that we want to grapple with out loud with other families because we truly don't have answers. We don't know. We haven't had access to this version of ourselves or our brains or our experiences. And then the compound layer of this is then being an interracial couple on top of that, where there's the water we swim in this country is white supremacy in a lot of ways that we're facing and discussing and talking about. Like, okay, well, is there more racism in this town and more homophobia here, or what's the political landscape? Are the policies reinforcing this rhetoric or not? Like, there's just so many layers that we were conscious of before, but now as parents, it's all consuming to think about Ember's safety in every ounce of our being.
And I think talking to other parents who are maybe grappling with some of the same things, it does give you life.
Yeah.
Right? It gives you an opportunity to feel less alone. And I say that not to discourage anyone that's listening to our podcast who's not in a same-sex relationship, but I say it because we have found, in our families in particular, right, like people who love us and we love, who are not thinking about the same things, right? And so if you are a member or an ally or someone who's not necessarily in a same-sex relationship, we thank you for listening, because I do think it is going to take all of us having these conversations and all of us thinking about these things, because when you send your child to school, you too should be wondering, is this an inclusive environment? Is this school going to be safe for my neighbors if they were to send their kid here? Is this, because when you're asking those questions, you are impacting the politics and the policies and the values of that space.
That's right.
If it's only folks who are asking the questions because it impacts them directly, that's what makes change harder.
Oh yeah. And it's just, I mean, for every civil rights battle for the history of forever, there have always needed to be allies on the front lines with folks who are experiencing the most oppression or the most injustice, because we need each other. We really do. And I think our big mission and biggest hope with everything that we do is when we start to see each other as family.
Right.
That you know, we hear your stories, we feel like we're in this inner circle together, we see you, our listeners and our community as an extension of our family, and we hear your experience and we're like, no, I want to advocate for that. That's important to you, so that's important to me. Then we start to change the needle on some stuff, is when we're not silent about our cousins and brothers and sisters and neighbors and their challenges and struggles, and we start to see them as our own. That's when we really see progress, is when there's a critical mass of people saying, no, I'm not going to stay comfortable. I'm not going to stay silent. I'm going to ask this hard question, and it's in service of a community that matters to me, right? Like we need each other in this space.
Right.
And we're learning a lot about what that looks like for different dynamics that we personally don't struggle with, but we're learning about, right? Yeah.
So that's season 3. And we hope you'll journey with us as we learn out loud and lean into it, and ask questions and get uncomfortable, get comfortable being uncomfortable, and share with each other. So we thank ahead of time all the families that are joining us this season.
Yeah, we're so excited.
We're very excited.
So
excited to introduce you all to lots of cool people.
Yeah.
Who are sharing their stories, right? And are living out loud. And what a revolutionary act that is, truly.
Right now, to love out loud and to be unapologetic and
authentic.
Yeah. Grounded in like, we will not be silenced, we will lift voices up and raise awareness of and shine a light on all these beautiful layers and textures and joys and challenges of our community. And we'll be taking notes, because we're learning a lot of our selfish desire to lean into this is we have so much to learn as parents. And so we're super excited to hear from parents who are a little bit farther along with kiddos that are a little older than Ember, and folks who are just, like every end of the spectrum. We're just really looking forward to hearing all the stories and learning out loud.
This just kind of came to me, but we're going to do it. What's since we're talking about parenthood, what's a parenthood story for you for the week?
A parenthood story for the week? Oh.
It don't have to be just from this week, but something you want to share with the people for this week,
Okay.
It could be earlier on, but what's one of your parenthood brings a smile to your face, makes you proud to be a parent?
Man. Every day I get to be woken up by our little light of joy. And I think my favorite moment of this week there was one morning when Ember, she has this new thing where she sits right next to me and just taps me. And she's like, wake up, mama. And then like every once in a while she's really, really sleepy and her eyes are like not quite fully awake, but she's trying to get my attention. But I just, one of these days they're all blurring together. But there was one day when she was just beaming with this big smile and just like, I'm here. You're my person. Let's party. Let's go. It's 5 a.m. Let's do it. And I just, I never knew that I could feel such joy when I'm that tired, just just the beauty and gift that she gives me every morning when she wakes me up is a gift, because she's co-sleeping with us.
Yeah.
So for context, she's in our bed with us, and so I just get to safely snuggle and to see that light of love every morning.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That is how you wake up every morning. That's a beautiful gift. For me, I have always embraced Ember's brave side. And she recently has been very interested in learning how to climb the stairs. And when she first started, I remember both you and your mom being like, she's trying to climb the stairs. I was like, yeah, might as well follow behind her to make sure she's safe, because she's going to do this. Like, you could see it was in her. She was like, I am climbing these stairs.
Yep.
And she's a pro. She's now a stair climbing pro. And she was at our friend's house the other day, and they were like, yep, she climbed up and down the stairs twice. And it's just cool to see the parent moment I'm having is like when I step back and allow her to be in her zone, her growth is just so fast. And to be able to witness that and to see that development is an honor. So we're going to keep bringing more parenthood stories to you, because I think it's important as we talk about the things we talk about this season to understand like we deserve to keep having these moments as a same-sex couple and as parents. And so do other families that look like ours. So I'll leave you with that.
I love it. Yeah, we're really looking forward to continuing to peel away the different layers of this onion and to hear what all this sparks for you. So as you hear the focus for season 3 and what's on the horizon, what comes up for you, we'd love to hear from you. Send us a voice note on Instagram, or you can shoot us an email or message or any of that. Just let us know, what stands out to you? What are you resonating with? And what are you thinking of as you hear what the focus is for this season? Is there anything that you're craving that we talk about or that we discuss? Because there's so many layers, and we're figuring it out. This is a very much work in progress season. We're stitching together when we have childcare and when we have time and all this, like, it's not this well-paved path. So we don't even know how many episodes this whole season's going to be, depending on how many interviews flesh out, right?
Yeah.
And so you might be hearing from us sporadically throughout the season, and so we want to make sure there's space. If you have questions or you want to hear specific layers of this, then just let us know.
Yes, please do. As always,
sure.
We love hearing from you.
Yeah.
And we are sending you love
and light. All right. Take care, y'all. Thanks for joining us today, y'all. We'd love to stay connected on Instagram and Facebook, so you can find us at 2 Wives and a Spark, all spelled out.
If you enjoyed today's episode, share it with a friend so we can keep the sparks of connection going. If you want access to our episodes as soon as they drop, click that subscribe button. Every rating and review helps others find us, so thank you in advance for letting us know what you think. I'm Leah.
And I'm Rachel.
Thank you for listening to 2 Wives and a Spark.